Hi everybody, I'm Nicolai Tangen, the CEO of the Norwegian Sovereign Wealth Fund, and today I'm in really good company with Christian Klein, the CEO of the software giant SAP. Now, SAP is now the largest company in Europe, third largest software company in the world. And we own just under 3% of the company, $9 billion, equivalent to 100 billion Norwegian kroner, or 20,000 kroner per Norwegian. So it's a very big and important position for us. Christian started as a student intern in SAP. Like 20 years ago, he became the CEO. Wow, what a journey, Christian.
Yeah, but you see my grey hairs.
First of all, now, just to get a feel for the importance of SAP, how much of the world's business touches an SAP system?
Yeah, Nicolai, first of all, thanks for the trust into SAP. And indeed, it was a remarkable journey the last 4 years. But of course, you feel, that a lot of the world's transactions are relying on SAP systems. And now, especially with the cloud, I mean, clients are very serious about, how do we run their most mission-critical systems? And to your question, 80% of the world's, B2B transactions run and touching an SAP system.
Wow. How many of the largest companies in the world?
Actually, 95% use one or the other SAP system. Many of them finance, supply chain, obviously, but we have HR. I mean, we have probably in the SaaS space the broadest portfolio in our industry. Yeah.
It's unbelievable. Now, for the people who don't know what ERP is, so stands for Enterprise Resource Planning System. What kind of things are you involved with?
I mean, there's a lot of talk about digital transformation these days, and just, to maybe illustrate a bit what is the role of an ERP, because ERP oftentimes sounds like back office, but it's not at all back office. At the end of the day, this morning I had a big, car manufacturer, and they actually all want to offer, mobility as a service in the future. So they need to change their license model, their pricing model. They also want to, improve delivery times, and that is all connected to their ERP. Yeah? The way how you quote, the way how you price, the way how you manufacture, deliver. I mean, that is all part of an ERP. And then we even go to the front line, with commerce and with our CX portfolio. So it's really covering the value chain, the mission critical part of each value chain of a company. And here comes also my passion. It's a piece of technology, Nicolai. But at the end, what it does, it connects business. It actually runs business processes. And that is actually the fascination, what is so special about SAP. We are running the world's most mission critical business processes.
Now, one of the reasons why I love SAP is because you're so integrated in people's businesses.
Yes.
It's not like you can just change your system.
Yeah.
So how often do you lose a client?
Okay, and not very often, and indeed, I mean, but I don't like it when we talk about a login of customers in SAP. Sure. I mean, they want to see the value, I mean, first of all, and when we talk to Apple, when we talk about, their portfolio, I mean, they really also challenge us from time to time. They say, hey, we also have to, squeeze for further productivity. How can we automate our supply chain? They also then offer new solutions. They want to offer new license modules. So it's very important that we also follow, what our customers, need for their transformation. And of course, when you are running a mission-critical business, Nicolai, I mean, you don't change your ERP, every year. So it's indeed a very sticky business, but it's also an earned business.
But how much work does it involve to get it installed?
Yeah, see, I mean, that is, of course,
how many years? How many?
Yeah, I mean, depends on the size and what kind of business you're running. I mean, there, of course, when you talk, about 100 warehouses in the world or factories, I mean, this is complex business, to run manufacturing, to run logistics. That takes a bit longer, but just, because you also need to involve the business and then implement, the software all over the world. When we talk about HR, about finance, you can have really fast go-lives, and then it also depends on the size of the customers. I mean, we have also, SAP is known for large enterprises, ERPs, but we are also having actually 80% of our customers are mid-market customers. And there, when you actually adhere to our template, our best practices, you can also have go live in 3 to 4 weeks, absolutely possible. If you adhere to the standard, if you want to apply the best practices, you don't want to configure that much, then actually, SAP is also very agile.
But companies often also change the way they work, right?
Yes.
And the logistical systems when they introduce your software.
Yes.
How does that work?
I mean, that is actually the part why we also said 4 years ago, we are not only doing a transformation into the cloud. I mean, at the end, we are running mission critical businesses and we want to start with the end users. And for them, a transformation is a change of the way how they work. the way how the company operates. And that's why we said, let's also focus on not only implementing our technology, but also let's focus on the change management. Start with the end user. They do a piece of work today like that. How will this work look tomorrow? What kind of automation can we bring in so that the end user can focus on more value-adding tasks? I mean, this is what SAP does with our clients, so that they also maximize the value, not only IT-wise, but also business-wise.
You say you don't look at it as if you are locking in the customer, but I mean, they are quite, what should we say, they are very dependent on you. How do you think about your ability to increase prices? Just how do you weigh that?
I mean, first, the way how we do our pricing. I mean, first of all, we look at the piece of technology. I mean, AI is a great example. We have a consumption-based pricing module. We look into, what does this AI use case do? How many transactions can you automate? How faster can you actually quote? How much more intelligent will your pricing be? How much better can you optimize your inventory? Then we define the output, the outcome, and then the customers can actually calculate what does it cost, but they also see then the outcome in terms of more automation, more productivity, more intelligence in the way how they run their business. And that is the correlation. And then on inflation, obviously a big other topic, we want to treat our customers very fairly. We said, look, there is a maximum price increase, which is very fair, but it also can be lower in case inflation is lower. So we actually do this, in my eyes, in a very fair manner. And so that customers also see they have also a kind of price protection with SAP.
Are there any verticals which you haven't really addressed enough yet?
I mean, actually, we run 25 industries, and the horizontal layer is actually oftentimes really SAP. And then, of course, in many industries, we also go into deep verticalization. I mean, just last week, I had a Scottish utilities company here. We talk about the metering, how to better, improve asset management for their grids. So there we have also deep verticalization in our portfolio. Same for retail when it comes about customer loyalty management, returns claims management. These are the verticals we provide, and we provide actually a lot of vertical applications. But also customers and partners also can build extensions on our platform, because you need data oftentimes from the ERP, be it supply chain, finance data, order data, customer data. And then customers say, hey, I also want to build my own IP. Okay, here we go. You have our platform called BTP. There's our data model, our identity, so you can natively integrate. And then you can also build your own vertical solutions. Also possible.
One of the things we've seen more of lately is technological nationalism. What are the issues here for you?
Yeah, I mean, these days, it's big. And, tariffs, protection, new sovereignty, laws. And obviously for us, I mean, running businesses in almost over 140 countries, I mean, that is our commitment to our clients. No matter if you do, business in China, in the US, in Europe, in Southeast Asia, everywhere, we will adhere to local laws, and not only local tax requirements, but also sovereign clouds. So we're building now a lot of sovereign clouds, based, of course, on local laws about data security, who is touching the data sovereignty, where does the data will be located. And that's part of the business. I mean, and that becomes, of course, now, these days, more and more important.
Are you seeing more demand now as European companies want to have a European alternative to some of the large US providers?
Yeah, I mean, I see signs for that. Customers asking, hey, when this continues, how safe is my data when it goes to the east, when it goes to the west? So they are asking definitely, hey, SAP, can we also localize our data more and more in Europe, even, in non-regulated industries? I mean, in the public sector, in the regulated industries, sovereign cloud was always a big part of the business. But also now we see it more and more non-regulated business. Not that, customers now suddenly shifting systems already around, but you see, there's the risk is increasing. So there's also some uncertainty around that topic. Absolutely.
Now, you sit in the middle of kind of the global supply chain here. Is there enough agility and flexibility to cope with all these changes in supply chains, tariffs, inflation, all these things?
I mean, yeah, absolutely. I mean, the tech, especially in the cloud, I mean, we deliver, new releases in the cloud, every quarter, or if the customer wants every year. But so we can deliver fast innovation. We can also adjust, our software to adhere to any kind of tariffs, now which are coming up in every place in the world. The point is, of course, what we would love to see as a tech company, but I'm not only talking about SAP, is of course, to have, a bigger, sovereignty across Europe. Yeah, not having sovereignty in each, member state, but really, having it across Europe, because that makes it, easier to scale, and that makes it also easier to do business with. And
will that happen, you think?
I'm not so optimistic. I mean, the point is, it's same like, in a private company. Yeah, you need to give up power. For the sake of, for the benefit of the bigger union. And, it's not always so easy to convince every member state to give up power and say, look, I actually, remove my own sovereignty requirements for the sake of having, one European sovereignty requirement. And that is but I feel this is, of course, key. Not only for SAP, we are doing business everywhere. We have our labs everywhere. But for the startups, I mean, they need scale. They need to fast time to value, and they need to scale fast. And for them, of course, that would be very, very important. Yeah.
How do you work with data privacy and cybersecurity? I mean, it's totally key. I mean, that would probably be one of the worst things that could happen if you got some malware really integrated into your systems.
Yeah, and I mean, it's part of all of our contracts with the customers. They have clear SLAs on what happens in case there are vulnerabilities. We, of course, invest billions of R&D money into cyber. I mean, it's actually for us a corporate requirement, and there are clear also SLAs and requirements inside SAP. So we take this very serious. We have there even, in the board, regular checkups, so that the organization feels there is no compromise around cybersecurity. But what I always tell my customers about is, when you look at SAP or our hyperscaler partners, I mean, we are putting a big firewall around the whole technical stack. I mean, as a mid-sized company somewhere here in Germany or in Europe or everywhere in the world, I mean, it's hard to deal, with this, fast developments on cyber. So I would say the cloud is another good reason now to say for cyber, I want to move to the cloud. I give this, topic also in the hands of big technology companies to secure my data, to secure my system.
It just seems like the attack surface is getting bigger and bigger as everything is digitalized, right? And you have new type of enemies.
Yeah, you have new, bad actors. You actually, the threats are increasing. I mean, we see it clearly. I mean, and that is, the B2B data, especially in some industries, is very mission critical. So yes, you have to absolutely make sure that you have a secure landscape up and running. Yeah?
Now, if you look at history, Amazon kind of invented cloud computing. Why wasn't it SAP?
Yeah, Nicolai, that's a good question. I mean, look, the good piece is now you see it in our numbers. We are there. We are super successful. I would say we have the fastest growth in the SaaS space. But the point is, of course, why didn't we see it, 15, 20 years ago? I mean, there's a good book about the invader's dilemma. Yep. I said there is a lot of truth into it. Yeah, you have a well-run traditional business model. It delivers good growth, good profits, and you don't realize, hey, how fast can the market change actually? And then to tell, your customers, to tell your employees, and even, worse sometimes, to tell the capital markets to say, hey, I'm gonna disrupt my own business module, and I'm, building now a different business model in parallel, which costs probably a lot of money. It's not that easy for customers.
What was the moment where you realized you needed to change?
I mean, for me, it was pretty clear already when we acquired a lot of, cloud products. It was clear that the market is changing. And for me, personally, I always thought, hey, we need to bet even more on the cloud. I mean, you see, where the customers is going. And so it was for me very clear in 2019 when I became the co-CEO of the company that we have to double down on our cloud transformation. Absolutely. I mean, look, Nicolai, we have 50,000 developers. They are coding great stuff every day. A lot of AI use cases are really good stuff. But what does it help when you're sitting on an 8-year-old release and you're looking into a screen which is, probably, still touched, by one of our founders. Yeah, so that is the problem. Yeah, the innovation gap is too big, and we are coding a lot of new capabilities for business model transformation, resiliency in supply chain. We have a green ledger. You can use a green ledger to not only guessing about carbon emissions, but also having actuals. And you need to reduce this gap. Yeah, you between, the customers are here, the latest release is there, and the answer and the solution to to that is cloud.
Sure, but it's a tough decision to make, right? Because you do kind of you take a hit on when it comes to the share price and all that kind of things, right?
Yeah, I mean, look, SAP had in 2007-8 we had a company, 100% owned SAP hosting. So some people here somewhere, realized there is something coming. Maybe customers want to outsource their IT systems to the cloud. And then we sold it. What I figured out later is, the margin was not that high as in our traditional business. It was actually, not helping quarter by quarter. But then, to have the courage to say, what, we go out to the capital markets and say, we have our traditional business, so to say more our cash cow, and then but we invest into a new business model. That is, of course, never easy. And then look at SAP the last 4 years, when you would ask now the people here, there's a lot of change also in the way how they work day over day, the way how we incentivize them, the way how we measure success. Everything is changing. It's a nice piece of strategy paper, but then to get the strategy executed is, oftentimes, the biggest challenge.
How do you think quantum computing will change the way you work?
Quantum, definitely we're doing research there, for example, take supply chain, when it comes about logistics optimization. It's very, very complex. You need a lot of computing power, to simulate, logistical chains, how to bring a product A from product B. There are millions of, value drivers who influence your logistical supply chain. And that is, of course, one use case where we definitely see it will be a big game changer. If we can, use quantum, in the context of our supply chain portfolio. Finance, blockchain is, of course, another thing. But, these are the early use cases. And, when I'm talking to our researchers, they actually would say now in 3 to 4 years, the technology should be that mature that we really can apply it in the context of our portfolio, of our products.
Why haven't companies gotten more productivity out of software in the past?
Yeah, that's a good piece. Before I became the CEO, I asked, of course, I was running here the IT organization, and I got presented a business case, move to S4HANA. I said, great idea, but what does it do to our business? What does it do to our transformation? But it was purely planned as a technical migration. There's a next ERP, let's just technically migrate. I said, what is now changing for the benefit of our SaaS module? We run the company still as an on-premise company in many business processes. So for me, I guess it's very important that the customers understand when you are running an ERP project, or let's take AI, you always have to have the business at the table. When you're coming in here and you talk about ERP and there are only IT people around the table, I would question, will the customer see the maximum value? Of course, IT can benefit of decreasing the cost of running such a system. There is, of course, also a TCO game in that, but it's very, very important that you connect, the technology with the business. And this is where companies struggle the most with. How to do it, how to integrate the business. Is the business really open for that kind of change? Is the business open for automation, for standardization, or is, actually has everyone the freedom to do whatever they want in a commodity business? That is oftentimes the challenges in such software projects.
Let's move to AI. What excites you the most with AI?
The possibilities, the opportunities, what you can do with this technology. I see it always in the context of our customers' business. And I just had, yesterday, a big, French retailer here, and they do millions of changes to orders. They change orders every day because consumers, actually, do a change of what they order. They do a lot of order changes in the supplier space. And now when you can see how you can automate that, with AI, for them it's like a big productivity booster.
So if you look at the possibilities here, and so if you were to try to rank them, what are the kind of the most amazing things you're seeing here? Starting from the biggest changes over the next 3 to 5 years.
The biggest changes is actually in the context of SAP and AI is definitely on the analytics space. I mean, you today you're gonna figure out, your own planning simulations. You're figuring out how does my supply chain planning work in context with the demand which is coming. And when you see now how AI and all these algorithms will work, and now you can not only bring business data in, but also a lot of other content in. I mean, that makes, of course, financial planning, supply chain planning, workforce planning, will be absolutely moved to a completely different level. So in the work of intelligence, the way how these plans are integrated, and of course, how you then at the end can optimize and run your business. Or take another example on the supply chain side. I mean, a lot of our customers spend billions of dollars on asset management. So predictive maintenance for assets is something which will be, of course, hugely impacted by generative AI, but also traditional AI. So that is definitely an area where uptime of machines, uptime of factories. It's absolutely a big potential there with AI to actually drive further productivity for a company. So these are some of the use cases we are driving on. And then talking about, the stuff which is coming now on agentic AI, how often did I sit in front of an SAP system, analyzing, the payments overdue, and then you put the finance data out, and overdue, and then what is actually the problem of this customer? Why is the customer not paying? Then you can talk to sales, you can talk to logistics, you can have maybe a commercial issue, and when you look now at agentic AI, you can actually tell the system, what? Give me all payments overdue, the top 20 or top 100, but then not only give me this report, give me what is the root cause? Why is this customer not paying? Is there a sales issue? Is there a logistical issue? Did we deliver too late? Or is it a commercial issue? And then when you think about that, what kind of answer do you get back, and the recommendations about what kind of actions you should actually take? This is remarkable. Actually today, a lot of humans being not only spend time, but probably not always figuring out a right, call to action. And that is now what agentic AI will do. There is a finance agent, there is a logistical agent, there is a supply chain agent, and they will collaborate with each other. And they have so much more data, in their mind, in their module.
When will you have a true agentic AI working?
Actually, the first one we already shipped. That is about, the services and the services agents we have. When you're sitting in a call center and you need to give advice to a customer about are the assets, actually available? What is the issue of an asset? That is already shipped. And now we will launch at Sapphire, we will launch 10 more agentic AI use cases. And that is
Sapphire is the big exhibition.
Yes, exactly, which is coming in May.
Yeah. On average, across your client base, how much do you think this can drive productivity?
Our promise to our clients this year will be every end user who's working with our AI, so our digital assistant tool with the embedded AI use cases, we can actually drive productivity up to by 30%. 30%, yeah.
So across the whole company?
Yeah,
or
but Nicolai, you
function?
have to, it's not only a marketing claim.
No, but is that just for this function, or is it across the company?
It's actually across the company.
Wow.
When you are touching SAP software.
What are the big things this year which are going to drive 30% productivity gain?
It really depends on, you can take HR. You actually, when you're an HR business partner, you need to hire, you need to retain, you need to hire the right skills, you need to retain the right people. You actually need to make sure that the learnings are connected, to the skills of the people. What are the learning gaps? And that is, something what an HR agent will do for you. Job postings done based on, a lot of insights. Where is the skill gap in the company? What kind of skills do I need? When you then put trainings together or goal setting, that will be taken over by HR agent. Obviously, an HR business partner will have to say, yes, that is the right learning journey for this kind of job profile. But at the end, in the past, they had to type, they had to search what is the right learnings for them. Now an HR agent is doing this for them, and then they can confirm it if it fits, to their expectations. In finance, when you are in FP&A, you put a lot of data out of BW, you're doing financial simulations, how you're going to end the year, what is the sales pipeline, how can it influence my top line. There is a finance and a sales agent now doing this for you.
When is agentic AI going to be so good that we don't need SAP?
Actually, I would say at the end, you need business software. I mean, when you look at, and I know there was a lot of talk about, is SaaS still relevant when AI is progressing? I would say SaaS is very relevant because at the end, every AI use case needs data, needs the business context. I mean, sorry to say, I have no imagination, maybe someone out there has, how we could deliver our AI in the context of the business without our apps. I need a business context, I need a context of the business process, I need a semantical data structure of the customer. I mean, it's not like, that you can just implement a large language model from any kind of vendor and then say, okay, I'm now having, AI working for my business. No large language model on this globe understands business data, has access to business data, understands the business context. And that's why we are saying, yes, we use the LLMs for the unstructured content, for, actually for speech to text. But at the end, what it really is, the differentiator for us is our AI foundation who understands the businesses, the business processes, and the business data.
So when we have made this new great agentic AI, and we are putting this model in charge of running SAP, what part is it that you would be happy to see go, and what part would you absolutely keep yourself?
Obviously, our overarching goal is to deliver more value. If the customer delivers more value, I have a belief they will rely more on SAP software to run their business. And obviously what we want to shrink and reduce and remove is the time to implement the software. Yeah,
what part of your job do you think is a bit dull?
My job?
Yeah.
Look, at the end of the day, I still believe there are human beings who are making decisions, who will, I'm traveling the world, I'm visiting customers, partners, investors, and I still believe that is, something what human beings and the CEO has to do. But what will be, of course, much less is when I'm getting prepped for my earnings, when I'm getting prepped, for a conference, etc. A lot of that will be highly automated. Yeah.
So what is it that you look forward to not doing in this year?
Me personally?
Yeah.
What I'm not doing is in the past, I still know our products, I still know our solutions. So sometimes I go in and look into goals, I look into learnings, I look into financial numbers. So I'm able to really access our finance solution still. And what I'm not doing anymore is typing in a lot of transactions to get the information I would like to get out of our system. So I'm an end user of SAP software as well. And that is, of course, I'm using Joule, I'm using a lot of AI, and I see, by myself how I also will get more productive. Yeah. Just this morning, I looked into our P&L. I cannot talk about our earnings, but I wanted to see where we stand. And when I looked at how I did it in the past and how I'm doing it today, I'm not only getting a P&L report with one mouse click or actually with one, talking to Joule, please give me my Q1 P&L. I can also say, give me a prediction about, what is our current cloud backlog will be based on the bookings we did, etc. So that is, of course, more intelligent and way more automated. Yeah. Also for me as a CEO.
Now, many private companies are doing well here. What about governments and public sectors across Europe, for instance?
Yeah.
What's the scope here?
Yeah. When you look at Germany or France, there is not a question anymore, should we go cloud? They are all convinced about cloud. They all want to use AI. They see, also for the citizens, all the citizen services, you can actually digitize a lot and you can actually make this also make the citizens more happy with embedded AI. Now, they, of course, have way more regulations on, what does happen with the data. They have, very clear sovereign cloud requirements. And so we are investing. Yeah, we have Delos here in Germany, we have in France, we have together with Capgemini and Microsoft, we have Bleu. So we are building these sovereign clouds to also then say, hey, but now, every government, every public sector agency can also then, do business and run their business with SAP in the cloud.
Is there a real willingness amongst public sector to rationalize?
Yeah, look, sometimes I see there's some, of course, they are a bit more risk averse. Yeah. And of course, when you want to digitize a certain agency, you are touching, usually thousands of end users. And when something goes wrong, you get criticized. The problem here is when everything goes right, Usually no one talks about that. And then, sometimes I see, governments, politicians getting a little bit shy or whisk-averse to make those decisions. Just, because when you stay on the status quo, everything stays like it is, and I cannot get criticized. The problem is everything also stays very bureaucratic, very manual. So, but we see now that it's moving, but clearly the public sector is definitely not a front runner when it comes to digitization. Yeah?
No, I mean, the safest way not to make mistakes is not to do anything, right?
Yeah.
What is work going to look like in 10 years' time?
In 10 years' time, look, I really believe that when you look at, no matter in a company which function you want to take, I would say people can be way more focused on, on building great strategy, how is my industry transforming, but really not so much into anymore, going into, data analytics, etc. I mean, there will be a lot, what will be done by AI or software to really supplement, your strategy work way more. And the same is true for, as I said before, on finance or HR. There's still today a lot of, manual transactions, documents which you need to screen, a lot of bureaucracy you have to deal with. And I'm totally convinced a lot of that will be taken out and will allow HR business partner to think more about, hey, what is the workforce I need in 5 years from now? How will my skills change? And a lot will be done, in the back by software and AI.
What about the situation with the humanoids and robots? So I met this robotic company earlier in the week. I'm just amazed by how soon they will be all over the place.
Yeah.
How is this going to impact society?
I mean, the impact is there already today. I mean, I have seen warehouses in China and other places in the world where 95% of the work in a warehouse is done by robots. And I mean, that is already, today changing. And that will continue. I mean, also the way how you maintain factories, how you maintain machines will be completely automated, also by AI, not only robots. And so your workforce will change. I mean, even at SAP, look at SAP. I mean, we actually have today a profile of a developer. So we will still have many developers also in 5 years from now. But the skill profile of a developer will change a lot. Yeah? So the way how we code, the way how we will deliver software will radically change. So it's very important for every company to also think about, okay, this is my workforce here and today, but also how does my workforce need to transform skill-wise, and what kind of jobs do I need, and which kind of jobs do I won't need anymore in the future.
Europe, how is Europe doing?
Yeah, I mean, look, I would say still Europe has a lot of strengths, but, these days I would say Europe is not very competitive. I mean, look at Germany, our economy is clearly suffering. Other economies are doing still better. But I would say Europe is, losing a lot of strengths just not being not a union. Yeah, at the end of the day, you need a market, a common market, for banking union, for digitization, for infrastructure. And the point is, when you look at the US, when you look at China, I mean, when you bundle your power, you also then, have better chances when it comes to competition, not only in IT or tech, it's also about banking, it's about retail, etc. And this is something where I feel the union is just not a union. And that, in my eyes, clearly has to change. And there is too much regulation. I mean,
Tell me about Digital Information Act.
The Digital Information. Yeah, the point is, I mean, we are not against, for example, the AI Act. I guess AI clearly needs a framework for regulation. The point is only you have the AI Act on Europe, but you still have the Datenschutzgrundverordnung in Germany. Yeah, so another, clause around where where it's defined how data needs to be protected. How do we deal with consumer data? And so, you have a new act on EU level, but you still have, different, acts also then in the member states. And then you're adding one layer on top of another layer. And that is, of course, not contributing, to reduce bureaucracy. You're adding more bureaucracy. And that makes also the ease of doing business is getting harder, not easier. And that is the kind of problem what we have.
What are the implications?
The implication, when you sign a contract today around, with an European company, and you embed AI into the solution, and then finally into a commercial contract, I mean, you need way more lawyers. You need a lot of lawyers. You need lawyers who understand local law, but then you need lawyers understanding European law. And that just shows, I guess, very well, the difficulty of doing business in Europe. When you are signing a contract in the US, there is, first of all, much less regulation, but there are not different regulations state by state. And Nicolai, we here in Europe, in the last 2 years, we had to double the size, of our legal department.
Wow.
Just to
How big is your legal department now?
Here in Europe, I have to check, but it's probably around 150 people. Only for commercial, for contract, compliance checks. Are we compliant? Is everything in the contract right? And of course, customers have a lot of questions around how do we
I'm sure AI can help you with that eventually.
You are actually saying something which is also very true. When you see we do all the RefReg checks, it's done by AI first. There is still a revenue accountant who is then looking at the contract finally, but there is a lot of RefReg checks, compliance checks, which we are doing with AI. Still, you get every time new regulations, so the bureaucracy is also increasing.
Related question, why are there so few tech companies in Europe?
My big belief is when
I think the number is what, 3 out of the top 50 in the world?
Yeah.
And you are the number one?
That's right. Look, it's of course about, you know this better than I do, about, is there enough people, funds, willing to take some risk and fund, some early startups. But I would say money is not the main issue we're having here in Europe. Take, for example, SAP. There was actually, 5 people who did a job and they found, hey, I'm doing the same task all over again. And they had, first of all, the courage to say, I'm going out of a well-paid job and I found SAP. Then they had to find, people who finance them. That wasn't by far not easy. They got a lot of, no's from many banks here in the region. And then last but not least, they had an idea, but then also they had to execute. So they had the courage, once again, not only to do business here in Germany, but they also then wished, to go to the US and in other places in the world. And so when I look at this today and why is this happening so often in the US and not in Germany, when you look at in the Silicon Valley, and there's often a talk, why are there so many successful tech companies in the Silicon Valley? I see there is great research, there are great universities, but there are also great companies. And when you see this in combination, you have great tech, new tech coming. You see it very early, especially in the Silicon Valley. There are a lot of smart people figuring out where is the technology going to, what are the technological trends. But then you also have real world problems. And when you then bring this together, business, research, and universities, this is, where great ideas, are born. And then you, of course, have to have the money to execute and have to have people who are willing to finance, this new idea, this startup, to scale. And that is, of course, also the ecosystem there, which makes it very, very special. And here in Europe, look at that. If you build now a startup in Germany, you have a certain size of a market. But then when you want to do business in France or in Belgium or Norway, there are different regulations. You actually have to build a different legal entity. And that is time and money what it costs you. And that is not good. And that's why I would say there are a lot of good reasons to go to the US and found your startup there before you are doing it in Europe.
Absolutely. So against this really difficult backdrop, which you just painted,
yes.
If you were to distill down, why has SAP been so successful?
I would say, first of all, 5 founders who had a great idea, and second, to always have the courage to transform. There were many, many situations in SAP's history when, the CEOs or back then the founders wouldn't have, the willingness to disrupt their own business model, their own technology. SAP would have been yesterday's company. So it's also about this constant transformation, this willingness to disrupt your own traditional business model and to move on.
Moving on to leadership. So you became the CEO before you turned 40. It's quite extraordinary. How was that?
When I look at my career at SAP, and I feel this is the strength of SAP. I started here as a student, and since then I always had, first of all, people, mentors, who actually, gave me a lot of knowledge, who actually gave me a platform to grow my career. And they gave me a lot of trust and responsibility. I had my first team here at SAP with 7 people when I was, 26, 27. Others are still at the university. And then, I had the opportunity not to only see one part of SAP. I mean, we have here a big internal job market. So the ability to rotate and seeing different parts of the business is absolutely there. And that helped me a lot to not only have great mentors, but also then to learn business end to end. And then look at my time at SuccessFactors. I was moving from here to San Mateo in San Francisco, and I was able to help Lars Dahlgaard back in the days to run SuccessFactors end to end. I mean, I learned so much from closing deals, doing marketing, into delivering software, and also then making sure the customers are adopting the software. And that was for me, of course, better than every learning course at the university. I saw real life how such a company has to work. And then, of course, with my career, really seeing different parts of the company. When I'm sitting here today as a CEO, I see sometimes green lights, in certain meetings, and I can still judge, is this maybe too green, or should this not be more orange? And I don't like orange, so let's go to red. It's green or red. We have a problem or not. And so I have, I guess, the ability to judge, of course, not always to the deepest level, but I have the ability to judge, are we going in the right direction, and are the pieces really fitting together so that it works end to end?
How was it to lead people who were a lot older than you when you were so young?
Actually, I didn't think so much about it. I always, wanted to convince people about, leadership, about making decisions, also convince them about, with knowledge and expertise, and also, always be there to also help them, to do that job better. And I guess when people feel that there is someone who understands the business, who is also helping me, in my own career, helping me, to move on, I guess then you also, create, the acceptance you need. And then I guess age doesn't matter so much. And here at SAP, I would say we also have that kind of culture that it's not a matter of age. It's really about, your own performance, but also the way how you adhere to our values and be able to work in a team. Because here everything, runs in projects. There are not so many job profiles here at SAP where you are an individual contributor. A lot of is happening in teams, in projects.
Who have been your important mentors?
I mean, early in the days, there was, of course, the person who hired me, who gave me, a great platform to learn, but then also at one day he said, hey, why don't you go to this executive board member and present your stuff by yourself, and not me presenting it, go there and I give you the platform, to really show how good you are and what kind of work you're doing. And that helped a lot. And then I was, of course, with Gerd Oswald. He was a long-standing board member here. He taught me a lot about, not so much care about so much internal stuff, but really focus on customers. He was responsible for service and support. So I learned it the hard way also how mission critical our software is. And he always told me, Christian, no matter if you're in finance and service and support, always understand our products and our customers' business. Then I had Lars Dahlgaard, as a CEO of SuccessFactors, who founded this beautiful company. I had Jim Snabe, completely different personality. He was running development, so I was running dev operations for him. So I learned a lot about, how to connect business with technology. It was very important. And then I guess the most important time in my career was when Bill McDermott asked me to become the Chief Operating Officer. And because for CEOs before all failed. And I said to Bill, Bill, I don't want to be the fifth one failing here. I want to still build a great career at SAP. Can you do me a favor? IT is great, but I need businesses, I need business processes, and I need data. Otherwise, IT can only be, less impactful, but I need, the business systems and data. And so he gave me also then, this opportunity to become the Chief Operating Officer. And there, I learned how hard it is to transform a company. It's not only about tech. And that's what I'm also now telling our customers today as a CEO. I said, hey, SAP can be way more for you than only implementing a new tech, a new solution, a new ERP. We need to be part of your business transformation, because then the tech can unfold immense value. AI can unfold immense value. You can buy a lot of AI.
You have a big problem now. Who do you approach? Who do you ask?
Actually, when I have a big problem now, I mean, I have my executive board colleagues, and which I trust a lot, and many of them are really ask for an advice. Be it Sebastian Steinhäuser, who is head of strategy, is now our CEO. I go to him, and then we have a cup of coffee and think about the strategy to execution, what does work well, what does not work so well. And then the same is with my all other board colleagues. I'm the one who.
And what about outside the company? Who do you?
Outside of the company, I would still say I have a good relationship still to Lars, a former mentor. I have a lot of coaches who also help me on how to deal with complex topics, how to do problem solving, etc. So I have a few people there. And then, of course, when you talk to Satya Nadella, when you talk to Shantanu from Adobe, etc. I mean, we talk about business. Just doing a little plug here. We have had them both on the podcast. So the listeners should really check it out. And especially when I became, I was 38 when I became the CEO. I mean, oftentimes especially at the beginning, I asked them for advice. I said,
they are both Indian. Is there something with the Indian leadership that you admire or try to replicate?
Look, I mean, what I see in both of these gentlemen, I see that Satya and Shantanu, first of all, understand the business inside out.
Yeah.
Satya also started his career at Microsoft very early.
Yeah.
And when I talk to him, I mean, he understands, product, commercials, where's the market going to? He has a super creative mindset on how to bring all of these pieces together.
But they're also quite humble, right?
They're also quite humble, yes, indeed. And I would actually say this is also very important. Yeah? As I also tell the people here, I mean, it's great about the share price, but at the end, next day you have to deserve, the right to actually, serve your customers better. And that is, at the end, this humbleness, what you need to not only become successful, but also to stay successful.
Is there such a thing as a German leadership style?
I would say, the Germans, when I look at the German leadership style, I mean, we have our processes, we have regulations. Am I now a typical German? I mean, I sometimes, try to get bureaucracy out. Yeah, but I see this as a typical German thing, which is on the one thing a strength. Yeah, when it comes to, organizing supply chain, one manufacturing, you need to have this, kind of passion for the details, but you also need to be careful that you are not over-regulating so much. Yeah, there is somewhere a borderline which you shouldn't cross, because then your strengths can also become your biggest weakness.
What have you learned from being on the board of Adidas with our fellow Norwegian Bjørn
Gulden? He's also a humble guy, and when I look at Bjørn, I mean, he wants to be close to his retailers. He wants to be close to the people running the supply chain. And I guess that is what a CEO is also about, to not sit at the top in your ivory tower and, see, this is my strategy. But really coming down and say, hey, what are the needs, of my different stakeholders, and then act based on those. And then the second, based on Adidas, it's a different industry. But of course, marketing, brand heat, matters a lot. And that is, of course, certain things what I can also take out for SAP, despite we are different industries. Supply chains, COVID. It was very interesting how Adidas built a very resilient supply chain and how tech can help. So out of this mandate, I also take a lot of, input for our technology on to how to help, such companies to run even better with our technology, because you are sitting in the board and you see, what is working well and where do they need help.
Why do some CEOs have execution power? Why do some people get things done? You mentioned that you were number 5, in a particular job, and you managed to do it.
Yeah, I would say, people, when you would ask people, surrounding me, they would probably say, Christian can be sometimes a bit impatient and wants to do decisions, sometimes maybe a bit too fast. But I'm more acting and managing based on the principle I rather do, 10 decisions a day, and 8 are great and 2 are wrong. And I'm the last person who says, you know what, this decision was absolutely not great by Christian. Let's revert this decision. It was not good, so let's course correct it. But then I get something done. And at the end of the day, when I leave and go to home. The thing what I don't hate, what I really hate is I was sitting in 10 steering committees, spent the whole day here in Waldorf, and I have to feel I got nothing done.
Do you micromanage?
I micromanage, that is a point, which I got, a lot of blame for in my early years. I have to say, when I micromanage when I feel things are not going well. Yes, then Christian can really go deep and want to understand the problem. But is this now necessarily a bad thing? But I also have to tell you, things which are running great, I'm actually so happy to also cancel a meeting, said, today, we don't have to talk about that because it's running great. I see it in the numbers, the facts, the customers, everyone is telling me, fantastic. So, I give you some time back. You rather focus on other stuff. You don't have to spend the time with me.
How do you give feedback? Are you a straight feedback giver?
Yeah, but it's a big risk in this job. I sometimes feel people, have so much respect.
Yeah.
They are actually, concerned about giving you open feedback. And so sometimes I sit in meetings, I say, hey, you don't have to be so polite and saying only so many polished things to me. Tell me, are you agree with me or not? And if you don't agree, it's absolutely right, but please tell it to me now, because now we are making a very important decision. And it's absolutely fair to say, no, the CEO maybe, has, a different opinion than I. And so I constantly also, first of all, challenge myself to come across as, please give me this feedback, and not running into a meeting and speak up first and then dominating the whole meeting, because then you can, wonder why you're not getting feedback, but it's not a surprise. But then also, encouraging others to speak up. And I guess this is very, very important that you facilitate that kind of culture.
What's the part of SAP corporate culture which you try to change?
Yeah, there's a lot of talk these days about performance management, and there's a lot of talk about, indeed this micromanagement and giving more freedom to our people. And I guess it got a lot better, but the thing what I want to actually facilitate, especially here in Germany, in Europe, is, you can always say around what is good or bad around, US labor laws and so on. I don't even want to go there, but I'm actually convinced that in order to stay at the top of an industry and be a market leader, you need a kind of performance culture. And performance culture is not about every year kicking 10% of the people out. It's about, I'm as a manager need to be able to sit here together with you and give you constructive feedback about what was great and what was not so great. Because in my career, especially the things which were not so great, helped me to get better. How often did Jim Snaber tell me, Christian, in this meeting, first, I didn't feel very well prepared. There was a certain piece missing. And also the way how you argumented, you didn't come straight to the point. And I said, I felt the same now, but now that you're saying to me, it's good. Now I can go back and think about it and do it better next time. But this ability got a little bit lost. And that is something what I want to facilitate. So this performance feedback, this connotation to, do we want to get rid of people? No. I'm a big believer that performance culture, first of all, matters for your high performers, so that they see when they walk the extra mile and perform, that they really feel rewarded. But it's also for the people who are still new in a job, that they have the ability to get better. And of course, it's also then a thing that you also understand, hey, SAP is really looking for performance. It's also not okay for the rest of the team when you're just sitting around and, doing your job, in a way that, you're just, pulling your task activities to others in the team. Yeah.
Do you think the lack of kind of competitive spirit and performance culture, do you think it's a function of where Europe is now? A bit more bureaucratic, more rules, more security, safety. It's not easy to implement in this part of the world, right?
I absolutely do. Look, when I see it, actually also, and when I look at my kids, do I always tell them, don't climb up here the cherry tree? No, don't climb up. But, I'm, of course, still watching. But I'm not the one who says, hey, when you don't take any risks, how does this further, in your career later? When you take zero risk, I'm convinced you're also limiting yourself. And I mean, there is, of course, a topic like compliance. The compliance is super important. You always should stay compliant. But there's a big difference of not taking any kind of risk. And I guess here in Europe, I really feel we also need to educate, especially already in school, in the university, that risk-taking is absolutely something what you have to do in order to succeed. Yeah, because, when I look at my competitors around there, I mean, of course, every decision you do, every investment decision, every portfolio decision you do, there is some risk into it. I could sit here the whole day and say, you know what, we don't transform. Actually, it's great. SAP is, here at a certain level. We stop our transformation and we just stay where we are. That would be probably the way of where I would get, much less resistance here and there, much less criticism. But it would be 100% the one thing for this company to just stay where we are, because tech is moving fast, AI is moving fast, so we have to continue to transform.
Christian, how do you relax?
Relax? Actually, I love to ski. I really love to ski. I love the mountains, both even more in winter, but also in the summer, when you don't have always your mobile with you. And that is, for me, great, with the family, with friends. And then, of course, I have my sauna where I can, also spend a bit time for me. I guess it's also very important. I love the family, but sometimes it's also to come down and to digest what happened in the day and to think a little bit broader about the world and everything what is happening on the geopolitical side. That is also a time which is very, very important for me to come down.
So we interviewed 100 leaders. You're the first one who mentioned a sauna. So perhaps you have a fin inside you or something.
Yeah,
because
exactly.
I do sauna, probably 5 times a week.
I actually can almost compete with you on that one. Yeah. So I oftentimes when I do my US calls in the evening, and it's then around 9, 10 in the evening.
You're in the sauna.
I turn on the sauna. No, not during the call, but I already turn on the sauna, and then I hop in, before I go to bed, or I really, really love it, and it's a good way for me to come down and relax.
What do you read?
What do I read? I read a lot of, of course, business, newspapers. I lead a lot of research. I love research. I sometimes tell my CDO, give me the latest research on knowledge graphs, give me the latest research on vector engines, etc. Because I'm now not the deepest technologist, but what I love about this research is...
What do you like about vector engines?
But vector engines, I mean, the point is when you look at, AI and you need to, have now structured and unstructured content, the power of AI is to bring those two together, and the vector engines is actually a very, very important piece in that. On the debate.
Lastly, what is your advice to young people?
My advice to young people is stay humble, never stop learning, be always curious. That is for me. I mean, in my career, that was really, really important. And then at the end, you also understand that, when you want to build a great career and you want to come in a position where you have, also higher in the ranks, also, hard work. And I mean, that's also part of the truth. You need to, deliver outcomes, but you also have to also be open and honest to yourself that it also requires that it's not a 9-to-5 job. Yeah.
Well, Christian, you clearly work very hard. And I would say you have stayed surprisingly humble, given that you're a young person running the biggest company in Europe. Well done.
Thank you a lot, Nicolai.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks a lot.